Good morning, Israel. Good morning, everyone. It's an extremely great honor to be here with you, with OWASP, with your country. It's been a very positive experience being here in Tel Aviv for the first time, being here in Israel for the first time. But let's get started. When I was asked to give a keynote, this is my first year as a speaker where I've been invited to give keynotes. It's a big honor, but it's also a big responsibility. That I was asked to give a message about the future, and that's not my expertise. I give talks about technical talks, so I decided that I'm going to keep away from politics and controversy and just talk about technology, about cross-site scripting. My name is Jim Manico, by the way. I'm a former OWASP board member. I work on documentation projects about secure coding. I've written a book. I used to live in Hawaii. We'll talk about that later. But first, I want to talk about politics, controversy, and the future. Right? So I have to do this. So about a year ago, the OWASP Israel team began preparing for what was supposed to be the international conference here in Israel. And it was canceled by the OWASP board. And it was canceled by the OWASP board without any discussion with the local team. This is extremely hurtful to volunteers. It was very hurtful to the Israel community. And there is a lot of blood on the floor, a lot of tears and blood on the floor because of this decision. Now, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. First, I want to talk about my experience of being here in Israel. So I was at the Women in Tech yesterday, the Women in Tech meetup. I met a young lady from New York. I'm from New York as well. She was very familiar. And she told me that she had moved to Israel recently and was telling me about her experiences here in Israel, right? And so she said, look, when I'm in New York, if you show up on a bus with the pass that doesn't work anymore, they kick you off the bus, and that's the way it goes. But here in Israel, I went on the bus and it was out, and all of a sudden 4 people are helping me. There's someone on the bus to take money and give me and fix my card. If that didn't work, somebody would take me off the bus and help me fill my card again. And she's like, it's shocking, because being here in Israel is like being in a very big family. Yeah, that's a good. And she continued and she told me, and like on the bus in New York, if there's a baby crying on the bus in New York, nobody is happy. They get the stink eye. They get the bad vibes because the baby is crying. But here in Israel, she said, the bus driver would get on the microphone and go, oh, baby, are you okay? So it's like, great. It's like a family here. So, now, I have a neighbor in Hawaii where I used to live. My neighbor, he's like a really tough, I dare say the word thug, just a real tough fisherman Hawaiian man, built from muscle, scares me a little bit. And he has a big tattoo on him that says, family first. And he goes, Jim, let me explain what this means, bro. He says, when you have to take care of anything, always make sure family comes first. Also, if you're gonna go on a homicidal rampage, you take your family out first. I'm like, all right, this is a joke, bad joke. He actually said that to me. So I was like, all right, no problem. I had another story. And these are stories I'm hearing in the last day or two about Israel. Another story was from, hey, Avi, you're on stage, don't worry. Robbie's like, I'll be walking down with my baby, giving him a walk down the street, and every time I'll get 3 people saying, the baby looks cold, you should get him a coat. And then a little bit later, somebody will say, the baby looks hot, what's wrong with you? You shouldn't dress him so much. So that's part of being in a family, right? You're gonna have lots of good things, lots of beautiful things. You're gonna have some conflict. Sometimes family first is a lot of love. Sometimes family first is a lot of blood. That's the way it goes, right? Is that fair? That's fair. I'm from a Sicilian, New York family. I'm not even gonna tell you stories about my family. I probably so. Let's go back to OWASP for a second, right? I look at the members of the board. Andrew Vanderstock. I take a bullet for him. He is a great human being. I look at Martin Knobloch, the one board member who was like, maybe we should talk to the Israeli OWASP chapter before we cancel it. No, maybe. So Martin Knobloch, great human being. I've known him for over a decade. Sharif Mansour, just a compassionate human being like I've never seen. He brought me to tears the first time he talked to me. He was like, Jim, you have this beef and this grief with one of our popular members. It's got to stop, and he was right. I look at Matt Conda. So Matt can't handle his liquor. I drank one at the table a few times. And Matt Conda, we're always trying to do the right decisions. And when the OWASP board, and Chenzi Wang and the other members of the board, I don't agree with the decision they made when they canceled your conference. That's a bad decision. But these same board members, they are my family. I love them dearly. And family is gonna make mistakes. I apologize for them. I apologize for the OWASP community, but we are one big family. And let me tell you about my life real quick. I don't have a home. I'm booked. Luckily, I have a lot of good clients. I am booked solid, so I just travel from city to city, teaching developers about security, giving talks about application security, and no one cried for me. I have a very good and happy life as a traveler, and I believe I'm one of the OWASP members who has spoken at the most chapters all over the world, from like the gritty streets of Bangkok to like the fine halls of London, to the streets of Accra, Ghana, around the only white man anywhere, and that's a good lesson for all of us, to the to like South America, to I'm going to be in the mountains of Nepal giving a talk for OWASP. I've had this blessed life where I've got a chance to meet people and security professionals from all over the world and actually been in their homes and community to see what it's like. That is a blessing. It has changed me as a person more than I can describe. So when I think of my family, this is part of my family too. Being here is part of my family. But when I think, what's my family? I have no home. I wander the globe. So you know what my family is? That's my family. It's the whole world. And I want you all to think about that. I've been and given talks at 2 different countries within a week that bomb each other, that hate each other, that want to see each other bleed. And that's still the same family. So that's just my opinion of what family means to me. I have a unique perspective because of where I've been, and I want you to think about that. I want you to try to forgive the many crimes that have been committed against you, especially from our foundation. They're our families. Something to think about. Let's get to work, though. Let's talk about cross-site scripting. Let's go technical for a little while, right? Cross-site scripting is probably one of the risks that we first started talking about at the OWASP Foundation almost 20 years ago, right? And so, but look now, it's 2018, we have this problem solved, right? Cross-site scripting is a solved issue? No. It is a brutally difficult, complex issue because of how complex, client-side, how complex the browser renders markup in JavaScript. This is my cheat sheet for how you stop cross-site scripting today. If this was a Facebook relationship status, what would it be? It's complicated. It's very complicated, right? So what is cross-site scripting? Cross-site scripting is when the attacker, in one way, delivers a URL to another victim, where that URL contains JavaScript that executes when the user looks at it. We can steal data from that user, send out data to a different server that the attacker can collect. When you have a payload on a URL that executes when it's rendered, that's reflective cross-site scripting. Also, that's stored. Suppose we're on a chat room together. I can chat to you with some cross-site scripting with JavaScript. Then another user of that system looks at that JavaScript, which lands in the browser and executes, and we can use that to steal data as well. When I'm able to persist JavaScript, evil JavaScript in your website that's stored XSS. But more fun, let's look at some attack payloads out there, right? So this is an attack payload that allows me to steal a cookie. I open up a script, I build a URL to an attack server I control, I grab the cookie. Now this attack lands in a victim's browser, like we're chatting together, and I chat you this JavaScript in the database to you, boom, steal your cookie, and I use this image, which is not visible, I grab it and I try to preload this URL, and by doing so, it sends the victim's cookie to my server. What if I can steal someone's cookie? What can I do with that? Loud. Yeah, I basically can hijack their authenticated session. I can start conducting actions as if I was them. And by the way, the common defense is HTTP only. That will stop JavaScript from reading this cookie. Anyone familiar with HTTP only as a cookie attribute? Who's heard of this before? Think this is a good idea? You think it's a real solid defense? It's not. Because here's an example of another JavaScript chunk where remember, I'm getting this code in your browser as a user, as a victim. So I'll make an AJAX call up to your email system, and I'll say, yeah, I'll send it to your boss and call him a jerk. Sorry about that. So this is an AJAX request that I land in your browser, which is trusted against your website, and even if that cookie is HTTP only, same site, or token binding, it doesn't matter. All the modern cookie defenses are useless in the face of cross-site scripting. We have got to take this seriously. Here's Twitter getting hit with a malformed URL from a hacker Mikey, which launched this payload that tweeted the same payload and then tweeted about a love of goats that's quite illegal, at least in the northern states of where I'm from, United States. Let's move on. Here's virtual site defacement, right here. Someone told me this is a sports team, is that correct? Right? They kick worse than my mom, right? So here, I'm doing a little joke here, but the point is, if I want to deface your website, document, body, inner HTML, and I overwrite the entire homepage. That's what it kind of looks like. Yeah, we'll kick worse, but whatever. So here I am running a password. I'm embedding a login form in your site with JavaScript. When you click on that login form, I steal the password and exfiltrate the password using the same image trick. Over here, look, I use web application firewalls. I would never depend on one for security, though, because it's so hard to filter cross-site scripting, right? Here's a chunk of JavaScript that contains no letters. Here's a chunk of JavaScript that contains no letters or numbers. When you're looking for filtration rules, if you dial that filtration rule in too tightly, you're going to start rejecting good content. And if you start winding those rules back, you're going to let attacks go through, and there's no good happy medium that anyone has come up with. So be careful. This is not an attack that we can filter reliably in all ways. So here's one of the best attackers in the world. This is Gareth Hayes. He's #1 on the planet, in my opinion. Gareth is showing us a polyglot. Anyone know what the word polyglot means? What does polyglot mean? Someone who speaks many languages. What's your name? Good answer, Ron. Someone who speaks many languages. This is a multi-context attack. If you're a pen tester, take a picture of this and use it. When this attack lands in different slots in the browser, whether it's a link, title, style, text area, script, XMP block, it will use this SVG payload when it's moused over, will attack the payload. Great to fuzz an app with. Really neat attack from Gareth Hayes. Here's Mario Kodo debating how to condense this attack, which fetches your login page, and as it renders it, it rewrites all the action to evil.com. And they're still debating how to shrink this attack down. So it pops your actual login page and rewrites all the forms to go to an evil.com domain. Very, very slick attack using fetch calls. Here's, if you want to mine fake money, right? By the way, Bitcoin's a big scam, sell it and move on with your life. So here we have a script. This lets me embed a cybercurrency, whatever, miner to try to make money off of different people's browsers. But it's fake money, move on, let's go. Here I am embedding a keylogger into your website. So when someone, every keystroke will grab a copy of that event and send it to a different server through a socket connection here. So do we have to take this seriously? Should we take cross-site scripting seriously as a risk? Yeah. All right. So here's my principles of how we deal with this in a user interface. Number one, when you're building a user interface, that's where your security goes for cross-site scripting, right? Assume all variables into the UI are dangerous. Also, assure all variables in content are protected in the UI itself. Don't depend on filtration technologies to save you. More and more, I can build a web page, build a complex web page with the right techniques that regardless of what data is fed to me from the server, I am immune to cross-site scripting. That's the philosophy you want to embrace when you want to do real secure coding. Again, don't put on server-side protections, and be careful of developers using things like React and Angular and Vue who disable the security features of those libraries. When I say in React, dangerously set enter HTML, right, that's going to literally turn off React's normal escaping defense mode, right? So again, look at all of these defenses. Let's look at these defenses as our first layer here. The first thing we want to do, especially for older technologies, if you're using a Java server page, if you're doing like a PHP or an ASPX file, this is old school manual templates where you write all the HTML and embed variables into it. You have to escape manually. That's older technology. So every major language on the planet has some kind of escaping library built into it. And what they do is they take characters like this. When your browser sees this character, what does it think? How does it treat this character? Is it display data or code? It's code that will launch potential attacks. When you run it through an escaping library, you get this. Ampersand LT semicolon, an HTML entity that will display the less than symbol, but it won't treat it like an actual piece of code. So the best practice is, this is bad. I grab an email address from the request, I render it directly, that's cross-site scripting, easy. Now down here, I'm going to run it through an input validation routine, and even if the email matches my input validation routine, it will do encode for HTML encode here, right? So even if that's a good, valid email address, I'm not going to trust it. I'm going to escape all the dangerous characters, so it's treated like display data and not code. That's the heart of all of cross-site scripting defense, layer one. So now, but there's sometimes we can't escape, right? For example, if I'm going to let the user author HTML, for example, I use this widget a lot, TinyMCE. This is a rich text editor for a web application. And it looks like a document editor. I can do things like big text here. I can do things like embed images, different bullet lists, different font types. When I hit submit on this widget, it will submit a chunk of HTML to the server. Now, why can't I just escape? Why would escaping not help us when we're letting users author HTML that we want to render to other users? Because if you escape this, what are you going to see on screen? You're going to see the HTML. Is the application going to be safe? Yes. Is it going to be functional? No. You've broken the functionality of the app. What we need is an HTML sanitizer anytime we let a user author HTML, or anytime we're moving our own chunk of HTML around the DOM in some way. So I like DOM Purify, one of the best libraries out there. At OWASP, we have the OWASP Java HTML sanitizer. This is written by and maintained by Michael Samuel. So with this library, for server-side code, I make a policy. I allow title, href, I allow a certain language pattern, 20 characters, that's letters only. I allow certain attributes, certain allowed tags, and then I grab the HTML from the user that can contain all kinds of attacks. And all I do is I run it through the sanitizer, and what's returned is a safe subset to add to the database. Now this is a server-side control. We can also do this in the browser itself, which I think is more important. Michael Samuel did great work on the OWASP sanitizer. I use it in my work, but this is even better. And now I have a JavaScript library that any dangerous content I can run through DOM Purify, set it to a dangerous sync in JavaScript. Inner HTML is insanely dangerous, because if JavaScript gets to inner HTML, it's going to execute in your application. But if we call DOM Purify, all the JavaScript and dangerous content is stripped out in a very reliable way. The only person who's ever bypassed this is Gazareth Hayes, the first attack we looked at, the polyglot attack, and they fixed it almost right away. So this is a really good library to depend upon. I do both. I sanitize HTML as it enters my app, and I sanitize it again in the browser, so the browser is fully defending cross-site scripting. Now with DOM XSS, the big problem is most everything we have in JavaScript. If I get dangerous content to any one of these functions, it's going to cause cross-site scripting. So what we want to do is only use safe functions in JavaScript, right? So all of these, like text content, class name, form field value, these are all safe ways to apply data into the DOM. There's very few ways to do it safely. You should you only need to do that. This is all you need to still innovate and build good applications. And by the way, inner HTML, again, insanely dangerous, but by using this library, I can sanitize it in a pretty good way. So I'm going to parse JSON correctly as well. So the other trick is, these safe functions like text content, they don't work on the server. You have to escape if you're doing this. So when I'm talking about safe JavaScript functions, I'm talking about safe JavaScript programming of activity of data moving back and forth between the DOM. We also want to handle JSON properly in the browser. We're almost done here, folks. I need to parse JSON properly using JSON.parse. The original documentation on JSON from Douglas Crockford said to use eval, which is dangerous in older browsers. If I'm going to embed JSON, which a lot of our libraries encourage us to do, we want to use a serializer, so when we embed JSON, it's escaped properly and won't cause cross-site scripting. Also, by the way, if you're putting an advertisement directly on your website, you don't care about security at all. Give up, go home. So in order to have a safe website, we have to sandbox potentially untrusted content like an advertisement. So in this case, I'm using a sandbox that turns off JavaScript, turns off form submission and more, so it's now a safe place to embed dangerous things like an advertisement. You might get paid less for that ad, but you're going to have a much safer website. It's debatable of whether that's good or not. That takes us down here. Last but not least, I want to point out content security policy. This is a relatively new standard, not so new anymore, but it's incredibly powerful. It will let you as the programmer control what the browser can do. The best talk I've ever seen was from 2 Google employees, and I'm not a big Google fanboy. I want to point out good work when I see it. Michelle Spagnuolo and Lucas Weichelbaum, these are 2, they gave a talk called either a very fortunate or unfortunate title based on your opinion, Making CSP Great Again. I reckon that's a bad joke. So I recommend that you do a search for this talk. It's on YouTube. Even to this day, it's a couple years old. Best talk about CSP and how to very gracefully deploy this to your web application. So we talked about a lot of stuff here, right? I hope that our time together was of value to you. I hope you write secure code. I hope you forgive the board for some of the mistakes they've made. It is a great pleasure to be here. Have a great conference, everyone.